Okay, here's Q&A Volume 4. In your opinion, what are the top 5 most overrated bands or singers of all time? I'm not going to break it down into a complete top 5 breakdown, but I will name some that come off the top of my head. Bono, Creed, Green Day, and just about any other emo band you could possibly think of. Where do you get the ROMs for these games? Well, here's a free advertisement for emoasylum.com. That's where I get the majority of them from, although there's a lot on there that they don't carry because of rights, I guess. Like any game with Mario in it, well, even Donkey Kong games aren't in it. Pac-Man, a lot of certain franchises, I guess they can't post the links for the ROMs. I guess they can't have them, so for those games that you can't find, I just Google them. What is your favorite Super Nintendo game? Well, I actually don't have a huge library of Super Nintendo games because I never had it growing up during the Super Nintendo era. I ended up grabbing a Super Nintendo relatively recently, earlier on in the decade, so I never really got too many games for the system. But I guess I'd have to say Super Mario World. It's kind of hard for me to argue with that one so far. Once I expand my Super Nintendo horizons, maybe that'll change. But for now, I'm just going to go with that. Do you like Queen? And if so, has that band influenced your early life like Jethro Tull? Well, Tull didn't really influence my early life all that much. They ended up becoming something that I listened to a lot more after I got out of high school around that time, and they've been in my top 5 ever since. Queen, I like them. I wouldn't say that I love the band all that much. They're good and everything, but the one thing about them, though, that I will say is that Freddie Mercury is, without a doubt, one of the greatest singers of all time, hands down. What's your take on video game developers spending too much time on realism and graphics today at the expense of other graphic qualities like vibrant colors and a wide variety of backgrounds and landscapes? Well, in all honesty, I would say, maybe you're just more artistically inclined than I am as far as visuals go. But I would say that, in my opinion anyway, that's not something that I really noticed to the point where I would nitpick it. I would say that the only time I would complain about graphics being overly developed is if it's at the expense of the gameplay rather than anything else to do with the graphics. Will the Lions ever win a Super Bowl? You never know because there's no way to say with any certainty whether or not that's going to happen. Do I predict they'll ever win a Super Bowl? Possibly, but not in my lifetime. What is your favorite Rush song? I would have to say either YYZ or Subdivisions. I know that last one was a little bit cliche of a choice, but I don't know, I just think it's a very well put together song. Do you like chicken nuggets? I like them, but I try not to eat them all that often. Anything from fast food places, I try to keep to a minimum. What's the worst Atari and NES game you've played? So far, I'd say that for Atari, it's Karate, and for NES, it's Dragon's Lair. Do you like the Doors? If so, what is your favorite song by them? I'd have to say The Soft Parade. And I think that the album, while it's not their best one, is also overly bashed. I don't know what everyone's problem is with that one. I think it stands out more than ones like Morrison Hotel and LA Woman. How many times do you have McDonald's a month? Again with these fast food questions. I really don't eat McDonald's that often at all. Like maybe, I can't remember the last time I went there, but as far as fast food places, I would go to Wendy's before McDonald's. And with that, I'd say every month or month and a half, I go once. What's your thoughts on the way games have progressed so far through the years? It's pretty insane when you look back the last 30 years or so, how far video games have come. It's quite the breathtaking evolution, and I'm very interested to see where it's going to go another 30 years from now. Besides video games, what are some of your hobbies? Well, some of you know I'm in a band. I play drums and mess around with some other instruments just for the hell of it. I'm not good at it at all. I'll record music with my band. We're pretty much more of a recording project than a live project. And I'll watch movies, write, go out for drinks and shit like that with friends, and Of course, there's video games and video game accessories. What is the first video game that you ever played? That would be Pac-Man on Atari 2600. Got it for my birthday, not knowing what a video game even was, and the rest is history. What bands do you like? Well, I have a list on my profile, but the ones that stand out the most to me are Tom Petty, Jethro Tull, Pink Floyd, anything that Mike Patton does, Faith No More, Mr. Bungle, Phantomus, Tomahawk, etc. Primus, Buckethead, Opeth, and Beck. I'd say that those are the ones at the top of my list. I'm sure that I forgot some that should be mentioned, but I'll save it for another time. Are you a big first-person shooter fan? I like first-person shooters. I wouldn't say that they're at the very top of my list as far as favorite games to play, but they're definitely fun, and you cannot go wrong with Doom. When are you going to put up your fan collab? Well, just to update everybody on the Ninja Turtles review, it's still a work in progress, and it will continue to be one like that for a while. It's a pretty long process of putting it all together. For one thing, you gotta, get everybody to send in their clips. Some people are working on it still. There's some people that have dropped out, and then after I get all the clips and piece them together a certain way, it's not gonna be, as easy as writing everything up myself and then just inserting it. So, it's gonna be something that I don't know. I have no idea when it's gonna be. Indefinite, I guess. It's the only thing I can say. It'll probably come out sometime before Goose TV premieres, though. Face. If you give games like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! An A+, why can't you give atrocious games like Dragon's Lair F-? Well, for the way I was brought up and went to school, F was just F. There was no F+ or minus. The way I do my rating system, I guess, is based off of that. A through D has pluses and minuses, and F is just F. Do you play Doom? Yes. Do you plan on adding more curse words to your videos? Now, you see, that's not something that I even planned to begin with. I don't have a sheet that I tally up all the curses that I do to fit a quota for each review or anything like that. I just throw them in there when it seems like it's an appropriate time for them. They're not there just for the sake of being there. They're there to add a little bit of an exclamation point to it. As George Carlin once said about swearing in his routine, it's a spice for the stew. Are you going to review such and such a game? I'm just going to answer all request questions right here and now because I don't want these Q&As to be overbloated with requests for specific games, just to break off the monotony. So the answer to all these questions is possibly. I don't have limits, really. But, feel free to send your requests because I definitely take them into consideration. But I also cannot promise that I'll review anything either. I don't want to disappoint that much. Are you a fan of the Angry Video Game Nerd? Absolutely. He was the first YouTube reviewer that I discovered. I think he's very talented, and I'm interested to see if his filmmaking career is going to take off at some point. Why do you not show yourself in your videos? Well, right now it's because I don't have a camera. But even if I do get one, I don't know if there'll really be a time when showing my face would be necessary. I think like every one of my reviews, there aren't really any spots where I'm talking about anything other than the game. There's no other reason than that. It's not because I'm afraid to expose my identity. I am a superhero or a villain or any of that kind of shit. It's just that I don't have the camera and don't have any spots where it would be necessary. Which games do you like best from the Sonic series? I would say one of the original two, Sonic 1 or Sonic 2. Are you a fan of the Legend of Zelda series? Which one do you like the most and which do you think is the most underrated? Yes, I do like Zelda. I think it's hard to argue against Link to the Past on Super Nintendo. And as far as the most underrated goes, I'd have to say Zelda 2 on NES because for some reason it gets a lot of guff. What's your favorite album of all time? Well, nostalgia choice would be Full Moon Fever by Tom Petty because that was the album that got me into music. But I think my favorite album, period, is Animals by Pink Floyd. When reviewing, walkthroughing the games, do you mess up a lot? Do you have to do many takes? Well, what I do is I do everything in one take, in one sitting, and if there's a part where I fuck up, I'll go back and restart that sentence all over again. Then I go back after I'm done and cut up all the parts that I mess up on and keep all the good ones.